Better thinking, faster decisions, bigger ROI. This is the Finding 12 Minutes podcast. The idea is simple. If you can find 12 minutes of efficiency in your day, you will gain an hour every week, and that changes how we work. Each episode is focused on practical ways to use AI, technology, and smarter strategies to help you move faster, think clearer, and get more done with less effort. So let's find your 12 minutes. So this week's episode, I want to focus on this concept of the ADKAR Change Management Model. So that's the ADKAR model and its connection to both the innovation, AI adoption, and ultimately really bringing it back down to this concept of finding 12 minutes. So organizations do not usually fail at innovation because they lack ideas. They fail because they treat change as a technical rollout instead of a human transition. They buy the tool, they announce the initiative, they host training, then they wonder why nothing really changes. And we get into this concept of what I like to call this hamster wheel effect. New platform launches, new process gets introduced, new innovation priority becomes the focus. Everyone gets busy, meetings increase, training sessions pile up, dashboards appear, but the actual behavior of the organization doesn't change enough to justify the time, the money, and the effort that's being spent. So this is where that ADKAR comes in and becomes very useful. And so the ADKAR stands for, it's an acronym, obviously. Awareness, desire, acknowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And it's a practical way to think about change because it forces leaders to look beyond the technical side of innovation. The model asks a simple question, but a very important question. Are people actually ready and willing and able to adopt the change? The question matters mostly because innovation is not the same as implementation. Implementation means that it's installed, launched, and approved. Innovation means that the organization is working differently and producing better outcomes because of it. But there's a major difference. If you look at the 12-minute concept, it gives us a practical way to think, a practical way to make change more manageable. Instead of asking people to transform everything overnight, we start by identifying that one small behavior, that one small problem that saves us 12 minutes per day. That could be using AI to draft meeting summaries, create usable prompts for client follow-ups. It could be automating a recurring report. It could be reducing time spent searching for information. That small change matters because it's specific and it's measurable. It's not abstract transformation. It's real behavior tied to real outcomes. And this is how organizations can avoid what I call like that change fatigue. It constantly feels like we're changing, we're constantly adding new tools, constantly doing these things. The organization creates fatigue around that. So change fatigue happens when people are asked to absorb too many new priorities without seeing what's getting removed, simplified, or improved. It's not always about resistance. Sometimes it's exhaustion. People are just not against innovation. They're just tired of pulling into initiatives that create more work than they are creating value. And this is why the human side of change cannot be ignored. The technical side of innovation includes tools, workflows, data, integrations, policies, even security. Those things matter, and they do matter a lot, but they're only half the equation. The human side includes trust, understanding, confidence, motivation, more importantly, behavior change. And then ultimately what we don't see is that reinforcement. And if the technical solution is strong, but the human adoption is weak, the change is going to underperform. So ADKAR helps leaders diagnose where the breakdown is happening. Awareness asks people to understand why the change matters, not just because what is changing, but why it is changing now. And if employees do not understand the business reason behind the innovation, they will see it as another initiative competing for their attention. Desire, the D part of this, asks whether people want to participate in the change. This is where leaders often miss the mark. They assume compliance equals commitment, but it doesn't. People need to understand what it is in it for them, what problem it's solving, and how it helps them do better work. The K part, knowledge, asks people, how they should change or why they should change, right? And this comes where training comes in. And training alone is not enough. A 1-hour webinar doesn't create adoption. People need examples, templates, use cases, clear expectations. The A part of this, the ability, asks people whether they can actually perform the new behavior in their daily work. This is a gap between understanding and execution. Someone may not know how the tool works in theory, but still not know how to use it under a deadline or under pressure inside an existing workflow with real clients with real business constraints. Reinforcement, the R part of ADKAR, asks whether the change will stick. Without reinforcement, people revert to old habits. This is where leaders need metrics. They also need coaching, they need recognition, they need accountability. And if the new behavior is not reinforced, it then becomes optional. And if it becomes optional, adoption fades. So this is where that 12-minute framework really becomes powerful. If we do not start with massive transformation goals, we start with repeatable behavior. Ask, what is that one task that creates friction every day, every week? What is that one small change that could save 12 minutes? What would it take for people to adopt the behavior consistently? These are all great questions. Then run that change through the ADKAR model. Do people know why this matters? Do they want to try it? Do they know how to do it? Can they do it inside their actual workflows, the stuff that they do every single day? And then most importantly, at the very end of this, is the organization reinforcing it? And if the answer is no at any one of those stages, the problem is not the tool. The problem is the change design. This also helps organizations stop wasting money in innovation theater. Innovation theater happens when organizations create the appearance of progress without producing meaningful change. They run pilots that never scale. They launch platforms that no one uses. They talk about transformation while employees continue working the same way with more meetings and more reporting. So it's more activity, but no real change. Activity is not adoption. And I think that's where a lot of people fail. They look at this and they see activity and they think there's adoption. The goal is not to create more change. The goal is to create better change. Change that removes friction, change that improves outcomes, change that people can absorb, use, and sustain. This is especially important when we look at AI. Many organizations are rushing to adopt AI tools, but they're not spending enough time asking how those tools will change actual work. Who will use them? When will they use them? How will it improve a task or a process? What old process will be reduced or removed? Or how is success going to be measured? Without those answers, AI becomes another layer on top of an already crowded workday. That is the opposite of finding 12 minutes. The whole point is to reclaim time, not consume more of it. The goal is to make innovation practical enough that people can use it, trust it, and build on it. That means leaders need to stop treating adoption as a communication problem and start treating it as a behavioral change problem. Good innovation strategy should answer both sides of this equation. On the technical side, what tools, processes, and systems are we introducing? On the human side, what behavior must change for this innovation to create value? If leaders cannot answer the second question, the first doesn't matter as much as they think. The practical takeaway is it's very simple. Use the ADKAR method to filter before you scale innovation. If people's lack of awareness, slow down and explain why. So if your teams really kind of don't have the awareness of what's going on, you really do need to slow down. If they lack desire for this innovation or change, connect that change to the daily pain points. If they lack knowledge, provide better examples and training. If they lack the ability to adopt this change, redesign a workflow so that the new behavior is easier to perform. If reinforcement is missing, build the follow-up system before declaring success. Innovation should not feel like a hamster wheel. It should feel like progress. The best change does not add noise, it removes friction. Sometimes the smartest way to drive innovation is not asking people to change everything. It is to help them find those 12 minutes, prove the value, and build from there. So some closing thoughts. Organizations don't need more disconnected initiatives. They need change that sticks. The ADKAR gives leaders a way to manage the human side of innovation, which is often overlooked when we're implementing these new tools. And while the 12-minute concept gives the teams a practical starting point, together, a better path forward would be start small, reduce friction, reinforce that behavior, stop wasting time, stop wasting money, and stop wasting effort on change that never takes hold. This is the episode this week. Looking forward. If you have a comment or questions, drop it into the notes below, and we'll see you next week. And that's your 12 minutes. If you found value in this, share it with someone who needs to work smarter, not harder. And remember, small efficiencies compound. Find 12 minutes a day and the results take care of themselves. I'll see you in the next episode.